Um, I'm not feeling it with this team anymore, y'all. I'm not. I don't think this is a tournament team, and we got to talk about it. And I'm frustrated, and I'm venting. And let's chop it up. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day, for better and for worse. We are here together. Listen, if y'all have been with the show for a while, you remember the early season football therapy sessions, right? The Illinois one, the Washington State one, the Ohio State one, right? And you remember how painful those were, but we got through it together. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on today to get started. So we got comments we're going to get to. This is kind of a free-form show like therapy sessions normally are. There's not much of an agenda. I got a couple people in the queue already. Brian, Rocket Man, I'm going to bring you on. We're going to talk about it. We got some comments. Curious to hear where all of you are at. This is a community-based show. It always is. So I really appreciate everybody. I want to get something off of my chest first, and then I want to bring on some people and talk about it. This is frustrating to me, not in the sense that we lost. This is really frustrating to me in the sense that I thought this was a really poorly coached Greg Gard game. I thought this is indicative of a lot of the foibles that he has that hold him back. And again, I think if you watch this show for a while, you know that I'm not a guy who after every loss comes on and loses his head and says, fire everybody, we stink. I'm not that guy. I'm not. I'm relatively even keeled for a fanatical fan, right? As even keeled as you can be, in my opinion. But the I've talked about it before. The fact that Greg Gard will not change his defense significantly or even a little bit at times when another team is dicing you up in the paint drives me absolutely bananas. Play a freaking zone. Just try it. What's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to score more points at the bucket. Like, it drives me nuts to see another team like Maryland employ a press, a zone, a man. They switch it up. They're chasing Essegian in different ways. And we just have the exact same coverage 8 times down the court, and they score every single time at the rim. And I'm just like, a zone, it drives me nuts. The stubbornness there drives me absolutely nuts with Greg Gard. And he has a lot of good qualities. This is not a everything stinks show, but like, feel free to change up what you're doing and adapt a little bit. I see NBA teams play a zone against the best shooters in the entire world. I see NBA teams play a box and one against the best shooters in the entire world. It's okay to go zone, mix it up, and try something to get Maryland out of their rhythm. It frustrates me so much, man. It's one of my biggest frustrations with Gard. I think he's too stubborn. Anyway, let's get Brian on. Brian, you called in. Justin on the show. Brian, second time on the show. We were talking beforehand. You were on the show after the Maryland football win. So coming back from Maryland, you're like a Maryland guy, Brian. What's going on, my friend?
Oh, I didn't think about that. That is funny. Yeah.
How are you doing?
Well, yeah. So I'm breathing. I've settled down. I've become philosophical, I think, or I'm trying to. So you'll see it on the Discord. Long diatribes, or not diatribes, but just long contributions to Discord. So here's where I'm at. Start of the game, or before the game, I'm thinking Crowell was where we had an advantage. I thought we had our big was better than their big. Whether I'm right or wrong, I don't know. But that's what I thought going in. At least that's where we had the advantage. Guards, I thought were pretty much going to be a push for the most part, and the forwards, I liked their forwards, and we didn't really work Crowell from on the inside, and he took quite a few threes from the outside. So I'm thinking, where's that going to? Yeah, what am I trying to say? If we work inside out best. And if we aren't really getting that post touch where it's a threat in the post, The outside's not going to be there either. So that was kind of one of my frustrations there.
So the biggest thing that I've noticed of recent is that neither of our post players have done a great job of getting the ball back out when things aren't there. Kral's been getting doubled, and he's been hanging onto the ball far too long in those situations. He's got to see it, and the second the guy reacts to him, that ball has to be back out. Wall's become kind of a black hole. He gets the ball. Tonight there were times where I saw him go 1-on-3, and it's like, just kick it back out. We have guys open all over the floor, and you're taking a shot that you already, when you have 1-on-1, have struggled to finish, and now you're doing it against 3 guys. And it's really getting difficult to find areas where we have an advantage. I think Kral does do some things, but the thing that bothers me a little bit with Kral is he tends to not always get position on the block great. He's a little bit further out than you'd like.
Yeah, he's not a dynamic post player. I want to ask both you guys, and then Rocket Man, Red Shed, Mike, I see you in the queue. This is going to be a fun show because we're really going to get some of y'all's takes in on this because this is a community therapy session. I want to kick it to y'all guys. I vented a little bit about my frustration with Gard being too stubborn before either of you guys came on. Am I off base on that, or
no? You're not. I don't disagree with it at all. Especially with a team that's as limited athletically as this one is, you have to take the places where you can help this team out as much as possible. Number one, every defender that we have is not a strong one-on-one defender other than, say, Chucky. I think Wall can be, but we're not getting beat up by teams in the post. So right now, our shortcomings are the wings on other teams that are just eating us alive. So we are getting chewed up because we have no one that can cut off that penetration because we don't have the quickness and we don't have the size at those spots. This lineup, we have the weirdest roster composition. Yeah. It's like we go 6'4", then we shoot up to 6'8", 6'8" through 6'9", and every single one of them can only be a post guy except for Wall. And Wall has to play the post because we don't have enough size for him to play the wing.
Brian, are we making the tournament, do you think?
I think we will slide in. I think we'll get I don't think we'll be a high seed. So, I mean, the people who are talking like that 10 to 12 seed, it's probably where we're going to end up. I don't know about the other Big 10 teams because I think a lot of them are kind of playing at our level, so to speak. So we might be able to get some back on the road that will help us get into the tournament in terms of quad whatever wins. But just a quick case study on your question about playing zone. Even Dick Bennett played zone once against OSU in Columbus. We were down in the first half, switches to, I think it was when Oki was a freshman, and we ended up winning that game in the second half. OSU didn't know what to do. It was the best win ever in that season. People can check me if I got that wrong, but I know he played zone and we won.
That's a great anecdote. And like I said, you can still be a man-to-man team and have a zone in your back pocket for when the other team is absolutely obliterating your defense. It makes them pull it out and go to something else. It gives you more protection.
It makes them think.
It just drives me nuts that he refuses to consider that. Anyway, Brian, man, thank you so much, dude. I'm going to get to other people here.
Let's go.
Please keep jumping on the show, man. I love your input on the Discord and on here. Red Shed, let's bring you in here, man. I see you in the queue. We lost Rocket Man. So, Rocket Man, if you dropped off, come back in. Red Shed, what's going on, my friend? How are you doing?
You're muted, I think, bud.
Oh. Nice guitars, though, man. I love this setup. You got a sweeter setup than I did.
Now I'm here.
There
you guys hear me?
There you go. Yep.
What's up, my friend?
Cool. I hopped into a competitive Rocket League game, and I'm a little tipsy. So that's where I'm at right now.
Better place than we are.
I think this is just an absolute rebuild year. I tell you what, I am really excited for Gus Bus. If he would have reclassified, I think that a lot of the issues that we're talking about right now kind of go away. The post depth just isn't there, and just like the the way to say it is the post depth is not there. Like we have one guy over 6'10" that is a contributing player right now, and we're a Big Ten team. Like that to me is a major red flag. So I think like Greg Gard has really been hurt by transfers out of the program. Ben Carlson would have been huge in terms of, if he got a little bit better, this would have been a great year for him to like pop off and get some opportunities. But just overall, they just don't have the depth to compete with Big Ten teams. And that's why right now I would say that they're probably not a tournament team. They'd be lucky to make the NIT at this point, but they certainly have potential. If Connor Essegian scores 19 points a game down the stretch, and they don't have to have Tyler Wall taking the most shots on the team, there's a chance, right? The fact that Tyler Wall has the most shots tonight is the biggest red flag for me.
No, that's a great point. That's an interesting point because we came into the year thinking Tyler Wall is the best player on this team.
Not offensively, though. He's a jack of all trades. You want him taking about 8 shots a game because, to your guys' point earlier, he's a wing that has to play down low. And I would argue it's more because he's not really great off the dribble and he has literally zero range. He's got borderline Ethan Happ range. So, I mean, when have you seen him take a pull-up 12-foot jumper and it go well?
I think the biggest issue we're seeing with him is the fact that he shot the ball much better at the rim last year than he is right now. And yet he continues to shoot at the same amount as what he was doing last year with far less efficiency. And it's really kind of making him a negative impact on our offense right now.
But I would argue that the decreased efficiency is due to zero respect for his mid-range game. I think one of the reasons Nigel Hayes is a player that comes to mind, recent memory, that was like pretty efficient within 8 feet because people had to respect that baseline 10 to 12 foot jumper that he was knocking down at a 35-40% clip. Tyler Wall just simply, that's not even close to a part of his game, which is kind of sad. And that's why, one of my knocks on Greg Gard is player development. A lot of people have disagreed with it, but that's the kind of thing that I just don't necessarily see that I saw with some of the bigs like Nigel Hayes. There are a couple others that come to mind that are a little.
Brown would hit a 12 to 15 footer if he was open.
Vito Brown, I actually think was pretty underutilized, and that dude actually has made quite a lot of money in Pro League if you follow him at all.
Listen, I love Vito. Vito was on the show once. For those who haven't been watching for a long time, I'm going to try to get him on again. I want to make a really quick point. Then I want to keep both of you on to continue this conversation, take some more comments. I would make this pushback on the efficiency issue when you're talking Nigel Hayes versus really Ethan Happ or Tyler Wall. Nigel Hayes was surrounded by a lot more talent. Teams couldn't collapse on Nigel Hayes. There's just no offensive talent outside of Tyler Wall at times. So I think that's a fair point.
I agree. It's just like talent doesn't necessarily like if Tyler Wall is 15 feet from the basket, nobody's worried about him taking a shot. And that to me is a bigger deal. Like in basketball, no matter what the talent is around you, if they know the scouting report says like this guy is absolutely not a threat. In fact, they want him to take 3-pointers.
Like Carter Gilmore.
It's the best thing for the opponent's defense if Tyler Wall takes a shot outside of 12 feet.
Agreed. All right, I got to take a very quick break to get to friends of the show. I'm going to keep both of you on. Red Shed, you got another second?
Yeah, we won our competitive Rocket League game, so I'm good at staying.
I love it. We got a victory somewhere in Wisconsin fandom at least. All right, really quick, we got a bunch more comments, just a therapy session. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. Thomas Miller's always a friend of the show. Thomas, talking about a great point about Nigel. Appreciate you, brother. We're going to keep getting into the comments, but first, today's show is brought to you by our new sponsors, our new friends, FanDuel. NFL playoffs are here. We've talked about it a lot. We're really excited. By the way, football is more exciting right now than basketball anyway, right? We're going through this therapy session, and we're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the number one sports book in America, FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's great. They have so many great features. It's going to make betting easy, fun, simple. New customers join today, and you're going to get $150 for free with a $5 bet. That's $150 for free with a $5 bet. Sign up for FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite props, lines, futures, in-game bets. Plus, you can do same-game parlays. It's incredible. I've talked ad nauseum about my 49ers Super Bowl dream. My money's still on it. I got the Niners +2.5 this weekend over the Eagles. Again, I bet with my heart. Do it responsibly, all on an app that's safe, secure, super easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Put your $5 bet on, get $150 for free in free bets, win or lose at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's get everybody back in. Let's keep talking. Let's keep chopping it up. Really do appreciate everybody chopping in. Justin, Red Shed. Let's take some comments. Justin, how frustrated are you right now?
Well, here's my issue that I'm seeing really this year more than anything, and that is that it feels like Gard needs to clearly change the athletic profile of the type of players he's recruiting right now. I'm not saying that he needs to completely, flip the game board and start from scratch. But what we're finding is that he goes with guys who have high floor or skill players that don't have a lot of athleticism and typically are guys who are likely going to be staying for 3 or 4 years. Part of the issue that I have with that right now, what we're seeing is we're also seeing that because of the lack of athleticism, these guys really struggle in games where they can't get easy shots. And our biggest weakness right now is the lack of athleticism has made it really difficult for us when we're struggling offensively. Now, it also hasn't helped that we have a guy who seems to be able to carry us offensively as a true freshman at times, and we only tend to use him when he randomly gets, slopped into a play where it works. Yes. Ryan, you and I are on the same page on this. Connor needs to be having more offense run for him. He's far too dynamic of a scorer to be a guy that you just kind of pencil in for a random possession here or there, especially in nights like tonight where it's clear that Chucky just isn't going to be aggressive. Like he's not
for whatever reason.
Yeah. So Connor is a guy who is consistent. Like he's our most consistent scorer. Like he may not be putting up 15 points a game, but he's pretty much the only guy that consistently gets to 10 every game. And I think, and that's with very limited shots, quite honestly. Like, I think, I'm not saying that his efficiency is going to maintain if he goes up to 15 shots a game, but I'd like to see what he does. He's a good enough shooter, and we saw it tonight. I mean, he goes 4 for 5. You give him opportunities, you start running him off screens and stuff like that. That's going to open things up in the post. It's going to make it much easier for Crowell to not have to worry about people collapsing on him. Same with Wall.
I totally agree. I think Essegian is the kind of guy that, so for context, I started my college career at UW in 2012 and ended in 2018. Some might say that is literally the best possible time because I got a Rose Bowl on the front end, 2 Final Fours, and then literally the Orange Bowl to end it. So, I think my context of Wisconsin sports is a little bit different. That's why some of my takes are the way they are. But Essegian is a guy. He might be the best college player that we see in terms of he's not an NBA guy. For those who are saying he's Tyler Hero, he's not. And
he's not that.
Because of his height, he can't control it. It's not his fault. He has every other tool. We've seen him dunk in games. We've seen him drive on seniors and get fouled and get an and one. And all of that development will come. I think he should have the most shot attempts per game for the rest of the year on average.
I actually think that he does that. He could carve out an NBA career. He's more along the lines of who's the shooting guard for the Nets? The 3-point shooter.
I mean, I know at one point we talked.
The guy played for Virginia.
Oh, Anderson?
Not Anderson. I can't think of his name. They gave him a big deal a few years back. He's a guy who's basically run him off screens and make him a shooter. And that's effectively, or Duncan in Miami is a similar guy. That's what Connor is going to be in the NBA if he goes there. He's going to be a guy you run off of screens who's going to be a problem if you can't follow him.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying I don't think he's a guy
he's not going to. No, he's not going to be a dynamic ball in the hands kind of guy. He might do it. I actually compared him a little bit to who's the guy that played for Michigan a couple years back. On their Final Four team. Stauskas.
You really
was a guy I feel like he could
in your head, Justin.
Yes, I know. I'm terrible at. I remember faces. It's what I'm good at. Stauskas, he reminds me a little bit of him. He's a better shooter, but and not quite the dribble, but it's similar type of skill set. Like he wasn't a great athlete. He was a guy that was more of a volume scorer.
I think he was a little bigger too, right? I
think he was more like 6'5".
Yeah.
I think Connor's actually a better athlete than that guy. And I think
Probably.
like literally
He's
if he was
quicker,
2 inches
for sure.
taller, we'd be talking about 2 years at Wisconsin, probably at the maximum.
Yeah.
And every Wisconsin fan knew if you've been to the Kohl Center to watch him live, as soon as you see that guy in warmups or as soon as you see that shot, you're just like, amongst Division I scholarship athletes, he just looks different on the basketball court no matter what he's doing. So that's what excites me. And in terms of getting into the Greg Gard conversation a little bit, I think the guy deserves at least a year with him and Gus Bus together. I don't know if you guys, how closely you guys have been paying attention to Gus, but like, the dude is lighting it up.
Listen. This is one of the early entrants onto the Gus Bus. We got tickets early. He was on the show. I love him. He's going to be a star in the Big Ten.
He's awesome, and he and Connor could lead Wisconsin to another 3-4 good years. They're going to need Chris Hodges to get better. They're going to need some other piece, and that's where I think Greg Gard should get more run here. I know there's a lot of fans saying, well, Paul Chryst got fired coming off of a 9-win season. Yes, basketball's a little bit different. Yes, we've tied for Big Ten championships. Chris McIntosh, though, has proved not to be patient at all. So I wonder if, like, do you guys think there's a risk, regardless of whether you think it should happen or not? What do you think the risk is that Greg Gard doesn't get a chance with Gus?
Well, really quick, let's do this because I got to take another quick break just to insert some friends of the show here. I want to get back to that question and then rip through some comments. So let's hold off on that till we get next to the break because I feel like that's going to delve into like a 4-minute conversation by itself. Really quick, we do want to take a quick second to thank everybody for tuning into Locked On Badgers. Also, we're going to insert some friends of the show here, so really do appreciate that. Thank you again for tuning in into really one of the better Badger communities I think that we're building on the internet, and it's reflective of the community. It's reflective of people like Redshed, Justin, Brian dialing in earlier. So thank you so much. Let's get back into this conversation. All right, Justin, why don't you lead off there? But let's not go too deep into that because that's almost a whole show, and there are a bunch of comments I want to get into.
I was going back and forth a little bit with Scary Alvarez on this, and my perspective on this is basketball.
Show, by the way.
Yes, my perspective on this is basketball is just different than football. Finding a coach that is a high level, like game time coach and a high level recruiter is really difficult to do. Like finding those guys that win at a high level and also recruit at a high level, there's not many of them in college basketball. And if they do, they typically have like a 25-year run at a school. And also I think location and fit is a big deal. So finding the right guy for Wisconsin that understands what they're looking for is not going to be the easiest. Now, there's other aspects to this too, with things like what shoe company we're aligned with, which is a problem. Like Wisconsin does not want to play that game, but if we were signed with Nike right now, there'd be a whole different level of or type of guys that we'd have access to that we just don't. And that's a problem. That we've kind of taken ourselves out of that marketplace. But there are some guys out there that if you're going to do it, finding a fickle type college basketball version, that guy's not going to be very easy to find. You're probably going to have to take a risk at finding somebody at a lower level that's just an absolute stud and hasn't been brought up.
I would just say, though, Luke Fickell himself wasn't considered really a realistic target for a lot of people until it happened. So I wouldn't sell Wisconsin short on that avenue. Now, roping it back to Gard, and Thomas Miller says, if you only had one guy who could take someone off the dribble, yeah, that's a great point. There's nobody that can break a defense down.
You could say that for the last like 15 years or 20 years since Devin Harris.
We've had some dudes. But look, going back to Gard and that question, again, I don't want to go too deep into it because I think it's a whole show. I agree with you, Redshed. I want him to have the opportunity to coach Gus Yalden, Nolan Winter, Connor. He brought those dudes in. I want to see that happen. And I actually think he's a good coach. So I think with the right talent, and Gus is that type of talent, he can do some things. So that's where I'm at. I don't think he should be on the hot seat right now, but I do think this, to me, feels similar to the very early conversations about Chryst, where we can see cracks now. And I think if you're not talking about some of those cracks in the foundation, then you're not being intellectually honest.
And I don't think Chryst was. we didn't see great improvement. In fact, we saw a reduction in the recruiting staff. We saw a reduction in the recruiting budget. So my ask for Chris McIntosh and Greg Gard, I'm not saying you got to fire the guy, but I think it's perfectly okay. And I'm a manager for the company that I work for. I go to my employees all the time and I say, listen, you're not getting fired, but there's a couple things that we got to change about what you're doing. Yeah. And here are the resources that we're going to give you to accomplish those things. And without getting too deep into it, Nebraska is really the scary example on the football side. I would put Indiana in the category where, they fired a pretty good coach and it took them, damn near a decade to get back to where they wanted to be. It's certainly grass is not always greener, and there are plenty of examples within the Big Ten of moving on from good basketball coaches and not finding it. Also, shout out FanDuel, man. If you don't gamble on sports, it doesn't have to be a lot. Put 50 cents down, put $1 on. I love it, man. So I appreciate it, guys. I'm going to hop off. But yeah, appreciate the show, and I'm just going to listen from now, if that's okay.
Hey, thanks, brother. Thanks for jumping on. Justin, let's hit some comments here. So Max Farron says, I think Gard is a great coach. Only so much you can do with a lack of talent, but that's something that ultimately falls on his recruiting, though.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the things that we're kind of seeing here with some of this is that he does need to adjust his recruiting thing, and he kind of did it the last couple cycles. I'm not in love with how we're handling 24. I am a little worried that we don't have any plan Bs, it seems, and if we miss on, say, Freitag or Kahn, that we're just who's out there? Who are we looking at then as a backup option? I think if you're serious about this, you can put offers out to other guys and say, you're the guy we want. You're the guy, you're our number one choice here, and still make that seem like a prestigious thing. But I think you need to not risk being left empty-handed here if somehow you don't hit on this class, because there's a very good chance that blue bloods are going to come for some of these guys. Con especially.
Con will get blue blood attention. Yeah. I don't know. I hear you. I want to see the 24 class play out, and let's see, because maybe Gard nails those guys, and it's all good.
It could be.
It works.
I still don't love the athletes, like the level of athleticism. I don't think it changes our athletic profile. I think they're very skilled guys outside of Freitag, but that's kind of where it is. I feel like you need somebody who's that Swiss Army knife, just stud athlete that you need to bring in. That's 6'6" to 6'8", that can kind of sit between the small forward, power forward position. They don't have that.
They need an athlete so bad on the wing, and frankly in the backcourt as well, and frankly in the front court as well.
Well, that's why Freitag, even if you hit on him, he helps the guard position, but you're still overall athleticism on the court. You're still kind of
Well, it's everywhere.
You're very skilled though.
Without a rim running five, you don't have somebody to challenge shots at the rim. And without that athletic wing, you don't have somebody in transition to match up. Without that athletic point guard, you're not breaking down the defense. There's a 3-level deficit of athleticism right now on the team, and it just kills us.
And if you look at the Big Ten as a whole, it's loaded with 6'6" guys that can score. They're
Thomas
all
Miller,
over the place.
Oh, sorry. I just want to bang on some of these comments.
Go ahead. Let's do it.
We got a lot of them. Thomas Miller says, hey, guys, I have issues with the team right now. It looks to me like they quit tonight. So I'm curious on your take on this one, Justin, because I saw we have an offline chat, and you had mentioned something, not quit was the word, but maybe a lack of leadership, or you don't. I think it's more the team's not very good right now is where I'm at. I don't think they quit, at least that I could see. I just don't think they're very good right now.
Yeah, I just don't know if there's a Brad Davison type on this team that you look at and that's the guy that's I'm not going to lose tonight. It doesn't seem like there's somebody that's just has that level of leadership right now that's in our group that we have. I'm not saying that somebody can't grow into that, but as of right now, I haven't seen anything that makes me look at this team and say, that's their guy. That's the guy that's going to take them. I would think it's Chucky, but Chucky doesn't seem like the most outspoken guy. He seems more of a quiet guy that kind of, the director on the floor.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a fair point. There's not that rah guy, right? But again, I think if you were better,
I think Klesmet's probably the closest thing to that, and he's out right now.
And he's out, and maybe that's where he's missed the most, to be honest, because he doesn't score a lot. Defense, listen, although perimeter defense, Klesmet helps.
He's
a lot.
Their fire, yeah.
Bo Draken says, Congo line behind me, grab your torches for sale sign in Guard's yard. We love Bo here. Colby McColby says, and this is, I think, Justin, you and I have talked about this. Everything has to be so perfect for us to score. We don't get that pure athleticism bucket that other teams get.
It's what we had last year with Johnny. Like,
Yeah.
things broke down. Okay, well, I'm going to make something happen here. And there's nobody that can do it.
The optimist, as always, says we need to be better. Shooting us be higher. CE3 needs more looks, but we will still make the tourney. Listen, Rashiv's the optimist of the show. He is the heartbeat. I don't agree, Rashiv, for the record. I love you, man, but I disagree.
Yeah.
Mitchell Lee says, while skill level is good for an underclassman, skill level as an upperclassman is disappointing. Are you disappointed with Rashiv not Rashiv, with Tyler Wall this year, Justin?
No, because I think he is what I expected him to be. I thought he'd finish better at the rim, but looking at him coming into this year, like anybody that thought that he was going to make this leap and be a borderline NBA guy, I knew he wasn't going to be that. I figured he could be he's the type of guy that goes over and plays 15 years in Europe and is a good player over there, but not a guy like they will love the things that Tyler Wall does well, but it's not necessarily what is going to be sexy to the NBA.
Yeah, agreed. He'll carve out a very long career somewhere if he wants to. I 100% agree with that. Jan Volk, and Jan, thank you for the comment, says Chucky gets bullheaded, decides he has to shoot come hell or high water. Justin, I'm going to kick it to you first for a quick take on this, but I have a take on this one as well that maybe disagrees a little bit with Jan, but I appreciate the comment.
I mean, he only took 3 shots tonight, so I have a hard time looking at it that way. There are times late in the clock, we've discussed this before. You and I don't think that is a Chucky thing. We think that that's just the way Wisconsin handles it in late game situations. For whatever reason, we ISO the point and say make something happen. And we just haven't had anyone that's that dynamic at that spot since Devin Harris. Like, you have a guy who's a top 5 NBA pick. Yeah, it's easy to do things like that. When you have a guy who's probably going to play a 4-year career, who's a nice athlete, but not great, is a little undersized compared to what you'd like to have, he's going to struggle to get a good, clean look, especially if they throw size at him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's somewhat scheme, somewhat system. I also think who else sometimes in some of those moments shoots the ball, right? I mean, this team just doesn't have many options. So,
well,
at times Chucky gets thrown into that, and it's not really. He gets too much blame for that, in my opinion. Not to say he doesn't take bad shots occasionally as well. Of course he does, but
you could say we'd run a set for Connor, but that does not necessarily mean for sure that it's going to work. Because even if you run a set for Connor, if the defense plays it perfectly, he's not going to be open. It won't matter. You're not even going to be able to get him the ball probably, which means then you're stuck at the top, potentially without a dribble, and you have to just wing the ball up wildly instead of actually getting a clean look. I think pick and roll is the way you'd ideally do it, or pick and pop, but I don't think Crowell's shooting well enough that you really want to be doing that.
Yeah. Murph, friend of the show, says when your starting point guard scores 3 points, Carter Gilmore has the same amount of points as Jordan Davis and Chucky combined. It's just, where I'm at, Justin. If I was zoom out right now and we're going down all these, like, if you have a river and you have all those little side rivers, if you're in a canoe that you go and explore, and they're all
tributaries.
Ends, really. Yeah, little tributaries, and you don't get anywhere, but you waste a lot of calories and energy in them. I think you just go back to the river of Wisconsin basketball this season. The river just is, we're a mediocre team.
Yeah.
Like, and all these are reasons for it. It's depth, it's offensive skill, it's athleticism, it's coaching stubbornness. But at the end of the day, Justin, we're just not a very good team this year, and that's not going to change.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to make the tournament. I think it's going to be really hard for us to put together get enough big wins for us to put together a resume that's deserving of it, bar us going and winning the Big Ten tournament. Like that, if they somehow pull it together for that, then sure. This team just doesn't find ways to win convincingly, and that's a problem because every game that we get into, and there's a lot of teams that are more athletic than us and have players that they can rely on to score when they need to score. Basically, almost every team in the Big Ten, if we keep it within 3 points or whatever, we're going to be in trouble because we can't run away from teams and create enough separation to lock games up. And that's where the difference is. Last year we had a guy who was a closer. This year we don't have anyone like that. And because of that, now teams can do basically what we did to them last year with their guys.
By the way, a bunch of comments. Mike Dowling, Thomas Miller, Joe Harris was the guy you're looking for, right? The Virginia
Yes,
player.
Joe Harris. Yes.
Yep. Lots of
He's the
people chiming up on that. As usual, the commenters are more on point than we
are. But I feel like that's definitely who I could see Connor being as a pro.
Yeah, he's a little bigger too, though.
I bet you they're about the same size.
I don't know. We'll Google it later. Or someone.
We will. To be decided offline.
No. Somebody in the comments will definitely let us know. That's for sure. And I see, it's funny too. I see the comment section starting to just move towards football, which is awesome. That's what Slim Lewis says. Let's talk about Snowden starting at safety, right?
At cornerback, definitely will love seeing him start at cornerback.
I think he's a safety, but we've talked about this a billion times, right?
When they show me that he has switched to that position, then I will call him a safety.
Well, I'll just say this, though. Like, the bigger point with Snowden is he's an elite athlete. He's 6'3", and you have somebody in your secondary that we're excited about no matter where he plays, right? Like, more athletes back there is always better.
You have a monster back there that can run all over the place.
More athletes in the secondary is like more marshmallows in your Lucky Charms. It's always better. Let's keep going here. Will Cincy says Connor's 6'4". I think Joe Harris is like 6'5", so maybe they're about the same.
I mean, let's be honest. Connor's going to probably put on about 15 pounds of muscle over the next few years, which is going to make a world of difference for him.
Murph asks, what if he doesn't get the 24 kids that we need? Speaking of Greg Gard, he doesn't. Let's say he doesn't get Knipple, he doesn't get Freitag, he doesn't get Jankowski.
It's happened. We've seen what happens when he doesn't recruit backup guys or secondary guys. It gets ugly. And this team is already really hurting for athletes. Listen, if that was to happen and he somehow blows it and waits too long, at that point, if it was me as a coach, I'm just going after athletic lottery tickets. Raw guys that I think that I can hopefully one of these guys is going to hit. And at worst case, they're athletic enough to play good defense for me and at least run. We don't do that.
I agree. You got to get some. There's some really interesting comments in here again, and I miss some of the comments, y'all, because I'm trying to kind of multitask. So I apologize if I miss your comments, but there's some really good ones in here. And this Braden Vanden Zandy. Geez, I know I butchered that. I apologize, Braden. He said coming into this year, what were your expectations? And there was a previous comment that said, if this team was expected to finish 10th, why are we getting so kind of frustrated about this team being mediocre? If that was the expectation.
I think for me, I thought that we would see at least a little bump from just about everybody that was a starter. So I expected Crowell, Wall, and Chucky to all be a little bit better, which they are. But I also expected some of the bench guys to at least be playable. And that's kind of where it is. Like it was a cumulative thing that we were expecting to come together. I figured we might be able to sit around fourth. I figured once we saw Connor start playing the way he was playing, that our ceiling might have risen a little bit and they might be a dark horse. The guys are not playing consistently enough. And that quite honestly is the biggest issue. Well, we have games where guys play really well and games where guys play really poor.
Right. I was going to say, too, we talked a lot about the lack of depth, and we said any injury problems to the core players are going to sink this team.
Yep.
Right. We talked
about had them.
And we've had those core injuries, which, by the way, you should expect. You should not expect to go through a season and not have
everyone be healthy.
Right. That's not realistic, which is God, again, gosh, love Rajiv. I told him this is not a team that's going to go very far because our depth isn't strong enough. Here's a really great one, actually. I love this comment from Ryan Hepting. He says, go steal Ed Cooley. I love Ed Cooley, Providence coach. He's really good. So that's kind of my point is I think there's coaches out there. Now, I'm also not on the fire guard bandwagon yet. I'm on the he needs to fix some things bandwagon, and let's talk about that.
And I think we both agree with that. Like he is too stubborn with a lot of things, and these are a lot of things that potentially could sink him if he does not. He doesn't have the cachet with the Wisconsin crowd yet that I think people think that he should. Those conference titles, well, they're nice. I'm not sure that they hold up as much as people think they do when it comes to donors and everyone else that looks at it, if they think that we should be better. And a lot of them probably do. A lot of them probably look at it like, hey, we were in a national title game less than 10 years ago. Right now, we're struggling to be a tourney team this year. And in other years, not even really a second weekend team. So we need to get back to what we were, we need to prove it again.
Yeah, I agree. We'll wrap it up there. I got to a lot of comments. I know I missed some. I'm sure I missed 5 or 6 from Bo Dragon that were about Greg Gard as well. I do appreciate y'all so much. Justin, thanks for jumping on. Red Shed, thanks for jumping on. Brian, thanks for jumping on. Everybody in the comments, Will, Monty, Braden, Bo, Don't Badger Me, Wes. I see you, Wes, in a lot of your show, or in a lot of our shows as well. Appreciate all of you. Fun show coming up tomorrow. We should have Braden Locke, the transfer quarterback, Ole Miss, coming on the show. So we'll try to go live on that. If you have questions, join the Discord. I always post guests that are coming up in the Discord so people can take the opportunity to throw questions out there ahead of time. It's kind of like one of the benefits of being in that community. So Braden Locke's coming up, and drum roll, we got Brady Collins on Friday, hopefully. So I've had to reschedule that a couple times, but we should have.
Is this going to be like Matt Damon on Jimmy Kimmel?
I hope not. I hope
Sorry,
not.
didn't have enough time for Brady Collins tonight.
No. I always have time for Brady. He's going to come slumming with us on Friday, I hope. So a couple really fun guests coming up. Stick with us here. We're going to continue to talk Badgers on Wisconsin, and let's go.